It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
Before we jump into all of that, I want to let you know about a couple of things. I want you to go to marketexplainer.com. That is our website. We have a bunch of information about all of our sponsors there, and we have all of the show and show notes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to patreon.com/marketexplainer to get the full videos with ad reads, but without the YouTube ads. Now, if you pay and subscribe on Patreon, you'll get it even without the ad reads. That's patreon.com/market explainer.
So less of your voice is what you're saying there.
Well, I think people, let's just be honest, big man. I'm the star of this show. You're just here.
I understand that you think that. I agree with that you think that.
Okay, so this first story, there is all of this controversy over Joe Rogan, the world's largest podcaster, who has an audience that's 11 times the size of CNN and Fox News combined.
It's a lot.
He interviewed a doctor and a scientist. Now, some old guy who used to write songs about sticking it to the man has removed his music from Spotify's platform. And then some old chick who no one's ever heard of does the same in protest.
In true millennial fashion, you call it these... Look, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell,
Correct.
These types of people are icons, first of all. Just because you want to say old whites, you know what I mean? And nobody listens to...
I didn't say white.
But these olds, are icons in music, and you have 100% listened to their music. But here's the deal. Look, it's really not even about...
I haven't.
This is not about their music. Here's why we're talking about it as Market Explainer, and I'm going to put this out there up front, is we've talked on this show multiple times that the stock market, the valuation of a company, is a very emotional thing. It's not just based on how much money you make. It's not just based on those things. It's very emotional. So what's happened to Spotify since this has started and then grew from just the one artist to two, and I think it's up to 4 or 5 now, something like that. Okay. This whole hashtag delete Spotify movement, right? It's cost the company in just market cap share at the height, $6 billion.
So I didn't even know it had gotten that high. I know that their shares fell and they lost $4 billion in market cap. It went to
That's where it settled, but it got up to a $6 billion loss and then settled in at 4 and could continue depending on how far this movement continues to go.
So here's the thing. I love Joe Rogan. I mostly listen to the podcast where he has other comedians on and he's goofing around. And the only reason I ever got Spotify or downloaded the app was because of when Joe Rogan flipped over to the app. Otherwise, I would have never got it. So I think what's happening here is, listen, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, these people are free to move their catalog wherever they would dang well please. But Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, said, we're going to add, misinformation or whatever.
They're going to add, just like YouTube did, a tag at the bottom of any of Joe Rogan's videos where he's talking to or about any of this stuff. They're going to add the little, hey, here's a warning. It's just a disclaimer.
And listen, Joe Rogan said he was fine with that. Joe Rogan gets embroiled in a lot of one-sided controversies.
Right.
Because people start beefing with him because, we started this podcast from episode 1 saying we're not going to be political, but sometimes these things bleed in together.
Sure.
Orange Man is gone, so they need a new target. And he signed this huge, $100 million deal. He moved to Austin. People speculated that was about not paying taxes on his deal.
Danny and I are cordially on different sides of the fence when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
here's what I will say. I agree with where... Go ahead.
No, but what I want to say is what's really important is we're friends first, business partners
Absolutely.
after that, and cordially holding different opinions, and that is a model for humanity.
100%.
We can just be pals because we both understand, I think, in our personal lives, how irrelevant most of this stuff is.
Absolutely. But see, I can see how you think that they need a new target, but I think, look, a lot of things Joe Rogan has done over the years, and some of them I might even think that Joe Rogan is smarter than he acts because of some of the things he's done and how he's gotten away with things. And some of the things you got to look back and go, he knew what he was doing. He was playing the idiot, but he knew, and that's a testament to his fame. There's a reason he created the most watched and listened to podcast probably ever, right? And it's still going. However, something new that this created, Joe Rogan very rarely comes out and says, I'm sorry, or anything. And in this case, he actually came out and said, what was the exact quote? He said, I'll do my best in the future to balance things out. For him to come out and say anything remotely about this is a big deal, is a huge deal. From him, because he wouldn't do it if Spotify said, hey, do this.
Right.
He's acknowledging there's something, you know what I mean? There's something that needs to be different.
Yeah, so let's reverse this and look at it from Spotify's angle. If they cut Joe Rogan based on because their relationship with Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, I presume, are probably pretty standard artist contracts where whoever owns the publishing, which
60% of Neil Young's online
publishing is
a dollar amount, right? Yeah. Online income came from Spotify last year. They are the number one by far music creation moneymaker.
So that's fine. Let him go to Pandora or whatever, whatever. Here's the thing. I don't even listen to music. On Spotify. I use YouTube Music because I have YouTube Premium, and I prefer that because I already have that. So, but let's look at this from Spotify's angle. Joe Rogan is well capitalized. Joe Rogan, prior to Spotify, had built a pirate ship of a business. He might have a comedy manager, but from what I understand, he books all of his own guests.
Right.
He on a recent podcast, he was saying he has 5 cell phones. So he has one cell phone just to book guests and stuff. And he has a producer. That's it. He has one guy. They set up everything. They manage. So he could have just as easily invested his own money, because what he's doing in Austin is building a club. Right. Because he believes as a comedian that he needs to exculpate. He needs to remove comedy from the influence of Hollywood so that comedians can be free to say weird stuff.
Right.
He could just as easily build his own platform, because there's plenty of SaaS, like software as a service companies that will help you. Because what is he like? Because he can deliver. He can go to Anchor, which we use, which is owned by Spotify, or any other platform. It's not hard to build the audio delivery. It's simply about the video and commenting delivery that he wants.
Right.
There's plenty of opportunity for him to go out there, buy a platform in terms of you can, lease one, build his own off of that. He has any amount of options where if he did it, he has a built-in audience of creators that would come with him. And he can say, he has a larger audience, like I said at the top of the show, at the top of the story. He has a bigger audience than Fox and CNN. If he just got everyone to chip in $10, because if you go spend 10 at Spotify, you still get his ads.
Well, but that in lies the problem, right? There are people like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell that believe when you have an audience, it gives you a responsibility to that audience. Now, I'm just saying that's what Neil Young and people agree with, right? That's what they're saying in this. This all started because he had Dr. Malone, Robert Malone, on his podcast. He did an interview.
Dr. McCullough, too. Dr. McCullough also.
But after that, 250 virologists, doctors, nurses.
270. Yeah.
I'm sorry, 270
Yeah.
wrote a letter to Spotify saying, "Hey, this is not correct."
And it turns out that it's actually not that many. It's not any. There was 4 doctors who are all in residency on that list of people, and it's mostly professors at universities, nurses, and I think there might have been a chiropractor in there or something.
The point was is they wanted to Spotify to
Yes.
say, "Hey, there's some inaccurate
Right.
information on
So
here,"
right.
and Spotify didn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
then you have created this environment where Spotify's not going to this is the story that's being spun, right? Spotify's
Yes.
not going to regulate Joe Rogan. We've seen it over and over and over again. Joe Rogan's not going to allow Spotify to regulate him, and because of that, we need to make someone pay. And you can't make Joe Rogan pay, right? Directly. So you're going to make Spotify pay, and that becomes the delete Spotify movement, right? And the different hashtags.
So here's what's to me interesting is if you go ask anybody, what was the misinformation that these two this is, and what I make this the thing that I titled the story as was very old artists that no one listens to leave streaming service Spotify because world's most popular podcaster interviewed 2 scientists. Now, you can, and I have no problem with people debating or scientists having a dialogue where they're debating the efficacy of whatever they were talking about. But if you talk to a normal person that's saying he's deleting Spotify because of these 2 interviews, what was the misinformation? I just want you to quantify in a paragraph what the misinformation was and counter the misinformation with correct information and cite studies. Otherwise, here's what I want you to do. Jump into the Brazos River.
Well, but again, that's your opinion, and see, that's the point. Is I don't care. You're talking about the information itself. I'm telling you, just like with the stock, it doesn't matter. It's an emotional decision. It doesn't matter. The fact is people will pile on to this delete Spotify. They will pile on to all of these hashtags of delete Spotify, cancel Spotify, yada yada, because of a feeling of their opinions. You're trying to go, hey, tell me what they did. Nobody cares what they did. A lot of people may be deleting Spotify today that didn't even listen to the episode.
Right. So, and Edward Snowden tweeted this, the people with the most ridiculous opinions, something along the lines of the people with the most ridiculous opinions of Joe Rogan are the people who've never listened to Joe Rogan. Therein lies the rub for me, okay?
Sure.
If you don't listen to a podcast and you're saying, well, I don't like what he said. What did he say?
Well, okay. And again, you believe that it's about the content. I believe that it's about the emotion.
I know it's not about the content. It's about stupid people. And I'm just coming out here to say I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want stupid people to be able to dictate anything in my life. I don't think stupid people should be able to walk around without wearing a full-size motorcycle helmet.
Look, I will quote Neil Young on this because I believe what he said. He said, quote, "I support free speech. I have never been in favor of censorship. Right. Private companies have the right to choose what they profit from, just as I can choose not to have my music support a platform that disseminates harmful information." Period. Correct. That's quote for quote from Neil Young.
Correct.
And that's what I believe entirely.
So here's the thing. That last part of the sentence, harmful information.
In his opinion. He has the right to his opinion.
And I'm saying he has the right to move his music and fail wherever he wants. And I saw an interesting tweet of people going, it's something like people who've never heard of Neil Young going, who's Neil Young? People who love Neil Young going, what's Spotify?
And I get that joke. That makes sense.
Yeah. So the roundabout thing of it is like, yes, it's a market explainer story because they lost so much market cap, but here's what's the more interesting. When you dive deep past the numbers, the story becomes people battling harmful information and misinformation without being able to quantify what that is. And that's where my brain starts going bing bong. Like,
That
I
is
can't
a
take it.
that's a completely separate argument that obviously we're not getting into with
Yeah, of course
misinformation.
not.
But I
Of
get
course
your
not.
frustration there. I
Yeah,
do. I really
because
do.
as an
But because that's on
because
both
as an
sides.
so as
That's
an
on both
entrepreneur,
sides.
no, it's not. And there's not both
Yes.
sides. It's an octagon. But I'm just saying, like, there's 8 sides. But I'm just saying, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, you have to now start straining your stuff through, like, well, how is someone who's like a blue pilled tanky gonna take this? Like, I have to put myself in the shoes of, like,
I
okay,
disagree entirely.
I
Why?
have gauged out ears. I'm a barista. My hair is purple. I ride my bicycle, and I think taxing will save the planet. So, like, I think if we increase taxes on Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, it's gonna lower the temperature 2 degrees or
I
something.
disagree
Yeah, I know,
entirely.
but yeah,
I
but
disagree entirely because that to me is the mistake of the four sides that fall on your side
uh-huh.
is the fact that you believe that. It doesn't matter to me. You should be able to be whoever you are, even
Yeah,
in
and
entrepreneurship, because and
right.
here's where people make their mistake. Is the people in this case, if you fall under the Neil Young side of, let's just call it sides, right? Neil Young
Yeah.
side, just delete the app. Again,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's not going to make any difference to Spotify. Okay,
Right.
it's not
And
going to make
you
any difference.
go listen to Neil Young
Right.
on Pandora.
And if you fall on the other side, keep listening to Spotify. That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
That's how businesses should run. It should
In
not be in
yeah.
any way a national news story that someone doesn't want their music on Spotify, even if they're
Because
an icon like Neil Young. That's going to be.
right.
But he has the right to not be on Spotify if he doesn't want his music on Spotify.
No, I agree with
Spotify has
that.
the right to go, hey, I don't want Neil Young's music on Spotify.
Correct. Now, let me just say one thing that I've had a benefit of being friends with the big man for some time that has rubbed off on me, which is his view that you should just stop making life unnecessarily complicated and simplify everything. And I noticed something about people in the internet marketing and ad management, the kind of stuff my company Avenue Lucky does. And I realized, you know what, I have this other project out here that I do merch and stuff for another company. And he was always saying, you're one person, you should just have it all out in the open. Why hide stuff? And I realized everyone who has views that are drastically different than me, I see agencies all the time in my space talking about that they did a project for some group that might be perceived as not central or centrist
Right,
or whatever.
whatever.
And I realized, you know what? If they're going to do it, why shouldn't I do it?
Of
Why
course.
shouldn't the people who view the world the way I view the world, which is a small proportion of society, why shouldn't they know that I'm out here and I'm flagrant about it? And I'm so I appreciate that about you, and I just wanted to say that